Hey YouTube, today I'm going to answer some of the questions y'all have been asking about salt. It's kind of funny how 20 years ago you pretty much had salt. That was it. You had the one kind. It came in this box. Everybody had it, and it was all we had. Usually when you bought this, it would say iodized salt. It's become more and more common recently to be able to get it without the iodine. This is actually the first box of this stuff I have bought in several years because I don't use it anymore. On occasion, when I'm doing a lot of baking, I'll pick some up, but I always pick up the stuff that doesn't have iodine in it just because I think the flavor is a little cleaner. But for the most part, what I use, hang on a minute, is this stuff, which is kosher salt. There are several brands on the market. There is a diamond kosher salt that people rave about. It's not carried in my local grocery stores, and I haven't used it. This has become available locally, so this is what I began using, and this is what I'm used to, so that's what I use. So they started iodizing salt, I think, somewhere in the early part of the 20th century. And they did it to combat a medical condition called a goiter. When they introduced iodine to people's diets, through the salt, the goiter thing went away. Now, since then, people have begun eating more and more meat, and we get a lot of iodine that we need from that source, so we don't need the iodine as a supplement anymore. Therefore, if you don't need it, don't use it. So, I don't know, Ricky, how close can you get to these different kinds of salts? Because I want to talk about salts you use for cooking and salts that you use for finishing. So, this one over here, that's our regular plain table salt. That's what everybody knows and what we all grew up with. And what I don't use that very much anymore except for baking. What I do use is this one. This is kosher salt. And you'll hear people talk about how there is less sodium in kosher salt than there is in table salt. Well, that's not true. It's all salt. It all contains the same amount of sodium. What is true, and you can see, this has a much larger crystal structure than this. This has been pounded much more finely. So if you measure a tablespoon of that, you're going to have a good bit of sodium. You're going to have half of it just because of how much space is taken up by the larger crystals if you have a tablespoon of this one. Okay? Now the same thing applies to this one, which is a perfectly acceptable substitute for either one. This is a simple sea salt. And you'll see it as all kinds of different grinds. They market it all as different kinds of sea salt. This one was a coarse grind, and you'll see that it is very similar in size to kosher salt. So you can probably just do a one-for-one substitution. However, if you find a fine ground sea salt, it's going to be similar to table salt, and you want to use less. Okay? Now these are the ones that you want to use for cooking. These are the ones that you want to use to season your foods with at the beginning and during the cooking process. And you want to use this to adjust your seasonings at the end of the cooking process. Now, here's something cool that has come on the market. Well, I mean, it's been on the market for years. Not everybody had access to it or knew about it. These are finishing salts of different kinds. And you can find 1,000 more. You know, this is just a small sample. This one might be most familiar. This is a French gray sea salt. And when they're evaporating the crystals, they leave far more of the natural minerals in there than, say, like these folks did who did just the plain sea salt. Okay? There is a distinct flavor difference to these. These three cooking salts are going to taste very similar. These guys each have their own flavor. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the delicate flavors that are real subtle that are in these finishing salts are going to get lost in the cooking process. That's why you want to finish your food with them. So, what do I mean by that? If you grill off a pork chop or a chicken breast and give this a little sprinkle over the top of one of these guys, you're actually going to be able to taste the difference. And it's going to matter, and it's going to stand out, and it's going to be wonderful. So this is a French gray sea salt. You'll often see this guy mixed with a lot of herbs, different herb blends, and they'll call it fleur de sel, flower of the sea. These two are both from Hawaii, and they contain compounds that come out of the lava flows in Hawaii. This is a black Hawaiian and a red Hawaiian. Both are really nice. I think that there is a natural iodine thing that happens with these two, and there's a subtle mineral flavor that really comes through nicely. use this one to finish off a nice grilled steak, something that can stand up to that color, because if you put it on chicken breast, it has a tendency to look a little odd. Beautiful on pork chops, beautiful on red meat. You're not, oh, do this with duck and you are set up. This one, this is the Himalayan rock salt. Now, I have seen this sold as blocks, and you can put that on the stove, you can put it on your grill, you can cook directly on the block of salt. I've done it a time or two. I can't really see why we would need to spend that kind of money on a block of salt. I just don't. What I really don't understand about the Himalayan salt is why you would need a lamp made out of salt. It doesn't do anything. It's pretty. There we go. A friend of mine got a Himalayan rock salt mortar and pestle, and it was delicious. I mean, it doesn't do anything additional or wonderful or extra. What is wonderful and extra is the flavor of this salt. It's great. Excellent on seafood. Now this is a pretty coarse grind. You can see that this one is much coarser than the kosher salt or the regular sea salt or even these guys. I would not use this except a very few tiny grains over the top of a nice grilled piece of trout or a chicken breast, or this one is robust enough. It can stand up to red meat and not lose its flavors. If you want to cook on a block of salt, that's fine. It is delicious. It's a lot of trouble and very expensive, and in my books, I don't think you need it. So, 2 types of salts: cooking salts and finishing salts. And size matters. You want to pay attention to that, okay? So, I'm going to put a little infographic up that my niece made for me about the different kinds of salts, and I'll make a division as to which one to cook with and which one to finish with. I highly recommend playing with some of these finishing salts. You're really going to like the results, and it just gives you a little taste of the exotic. So, please hit like and subscribe. We're on all the social media, Twitter. I'm on a roll today. Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, and now on Patreon. The cookbooks are in the Amazon store, so Happier Holidays or ground beef recipes available on Kindle or hard copy editions. And you can check out the website, thrillbillygourmet.com. There you go. That's all you need to know about salt. Hey YouTube! Today we're going to talk some of